Okay, so first of all, you're probably wondering why the fuck are you sitting on a couch like this is some kind of fucking podcast? Well, I want this video to stand out, unlike the others, because today I'm talking about one of the best albums I've ever heard in my entire life. It basically just changed my whole fucking life, which I have right here on vinyl. We have Mount Kimbie's, put it in front of the light so you can see it. I have Mount Kimbie's Love What Survives. This, in my opinion, is probably the greatest album to ever exist. It is one of my favorite albums of all time. Since I heard it to now, there is not a single track on this album that is bad. There's not, so this is automatically gonna be a 10 out of 10 video. So that's one thing I'm getting out of the way. This is a 10 out of 10. Just getting that out already because most likely people clicked on this because of the setting change, but it's also to get people's attention so they can see how great this album is. Now, I saw a lot of pretty bad reception from this album. Since Mount Kimbie has been releasing stuff, their newer stuff has been getting pretty bad ratings and pretty bad scores for no fucking reason except for that their music style's changed. Everyone seems to like their EPs and Crooks and Lovers, which I can admit are really great albums, but people tend to hate Cold Spring Faultless Youth and Love What Survives. But Love What Survives is the album that basically changed my entire perception on music entirely. I just realized this light's probably buzzing really loud, so I'm gonna turn it off. I'm pretty sure the lighting should be fine just like this. But yeah, Love What Survives right here. I'm gonna take it out of its sleeve so you can actually see the cover. Love What Survives is definitely the greatest album I've ever heard in my entire life. It's so beautiful. Every track on here is just one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, the thing is, with all my other album reviews I've made, I had a script that I was going off of that had, like, the track name, and then next to the track I wrote down notes. I don't need that for this because of how many times I've listened to this album and how much it, like, changed my perception on music that I literally don't even need a script for this. I can just go off script and still make the video. Okay, first I'm going to start with talking about Mount Kimbie. Mount Kimbie is a UK band. It's a UK duo composed of, I think, Dominic Maker and Kai Campos. I think those are the names. I might be wrong, like, completely, but I might be pronouncing them wrong. I might have just got the entire name wrong. I'm sorry if I did. This album came out, I believe, 2017, and I found out about it back in, like, maybe 2019, 2020, and that was when I was first getting into music. And before that, I would listen to Weezer and just mainstream shit, like indie rock and stuff like that. The second I heard this album, all that completely fucking changed. It starts with the track 4 Years and One Day, which is one of the greatest openers to any album I've ever heard in my entire life. It's an instrumental track. There's these spacey and drone synths that come in. The drums are acoustic. A lot of the drums on this project are acoustic, which is another reason why I love it. But it starts with this kind of spacey, airy synth, and towards the middle of the song, there's some bass or guitar, and the synths are kind of forming this beautiful chorus, kind of, and the drums in the back are just beautiful. The song is an intro, so it's not going to be too exciting, but it is one of the greatest intros to any album ever. The next track, Blue Train Lines featuring King Cruel, is the first track I heard off of this album, and from the second I heard that track, this album I knew was going to be an absolute beautiful album. Now, this song starts with what seems to be one of the same synths from the title track 4 Years and One Day, or something different, while there's like a kind of hi-hat going off, like a something like that. And then towards the middle, this pretty loud drone airy synth comes in, and you can hear just King Cruel fucking belting out shit into the mic. It is probably his best performance in any track yet. There's points when he's just screaming, and eventually the track, it gives me goosebumps every time, but it kind of just erupts at one point into this just flow of sounds, and there's these drums that have came in, and they're just, the beat gets stuck in your head. And I remember when I first started making music, or when I made music after I heard this album, I based every single one of my drum loops off of that drum loop in that song just because of how much I liked it. The next track, Audition, is one of the tracks that I can admit, I can admit this, is one of the tracks that I kind of forget about. And that doesn't do anything to the score of this album, because even though this track is this track is forgettable, it's when you hear it, you're glad you came back to it and listened to it. I can't really explain how that works, but it's a very forgettable track, but once you come back to it, you won't forget about it until, like, you don't listen to the album for a while. It's just one of those tracks that sticks with you for a while when you hear it, and then it kind of leaves, and once you hear it again, it's like hearing something completely new. Okay, I really want to get into track 4, Marilyn featuring Mikachu. If you didn't know already, I gave Never by Mikachu and the Shapes a perfect score of 10 as well on my other channel, which is Windowless. And that review seemed not as serious, but I can tell you right now that I still go by that score. If not, maybe a light 9.5. Maybe even like a light 9.7 or 8. Mikachu's performance and delivery on Marilyn is just so good. It's probably better than anything I've heard off of Never. And the instrumental in the back is kind of, it's softer. It's like a softer tone. There's a lot of catchy lines in there. Like the "I'm looking up at you, yeah, are you looking up at me?" I get that stuck in my head like every single 20 minutes. I'm singing that damn line. It's just that catchy. It gets in your head, and the whole track is just this beautiful mix of sounds and music and shit. It's just it's like Mikachu never disappoints, or Mika Levi. Anytime that they appear on a song, it's just absolutely beautiful. The vocals and the vocal delivery and everything is just absolutely it's just amazing. I cannot give enough praise to Mikachu for their vocal delivery and just what they do. Their music is so fucking good, and it's just I can't get over it. Same with same with Mount Kimbie. Every single one of their albums, every single one of their EPs I've listened to, it's always amazing. It's never disappointed me, except for that one song with Slow Tie. But they didn't even all it did was a little bit of the instrumental, and I love that song. And I don't really like Slow Tie's music, I'm gonna be honest with you. That song, though, made me start to like Slow Tie's music more. It's just such a good song. The 5th track, SP12 Beat, is a little shorter. It's kind of like an interlude, but it has this really cool synth line or melody in it that is just it gets stuck in your head. If I see the numbers 12, this is the first thing to come to mind, is this song, this little melody that comes in. It gets stuck in my head. It's like a little beat that probably was just thrown in as filler or as an interlude because they only had 10 tracks or something, and it works as a full song. I could totally see this just being something that they worked on for hours. It's so good. Track 6, You Look Certain, I'm Not So Sure, featuring Andrea Balancy. I don't really have much knowledge on the vocalist. I don't even really know how to say their name, but this song takes more of a rockish turn, more indie rock kind of turn to it. That's the main reason why I got into this album, is that there's a huge mix of electronic and indie rock, which molds into this just beautiful album. It's it just molds into this really well-made project, and everything on this project is it just flows together so well. Everything just kind of does its own thing, and that's what I love about it. This track starts with these distorted guitars, and eventually when the vocals come in, they sound off key. They sound dissonant. They sound dissonant to the instrumental and the guitar, but they work so well with it that you don't even realize. Again, the vocals are fucking catchy. I'm sitting around my house just singing them, and then after that you had the guitars in the back, and at this one point, there's just one point where the only way I can describe it is by singing how it sounds. The guitars go doo 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 doo. That part of the song sends goosebumps down my entire body every single time I hear it play. Track 7 is called Poison, and it's a piano ballad basically. There's no drums or anything. It's just kind of some bass, it sounds like, and a piano. And again, it seems kind of like it would be filler, but then you listen to it and you don't think it would be filler at all, because it's beautiful. It's such a good song. And then you go into track 8. This is where the album really starts to take the turn where you just know it's one of the greatest albums of all time, because you have 2 features on this album by James Blake. The first track, We Go Home Together, the performance is so riveting, and it's so just beautiful that it's in We Go Home Together, there's this there's kind of a jazzy drum beat, and there's also some organ in the back, or what I think would be electric organ. Over James Blake's vocals, the track just molds together so fucking well that it's just unforgettable. This track is I used to not really like the ones with James Blake's vocals in them. I'm gonna be honest. When I first heard this album, those tracks weren't as good. And when I first heard the entire album, I would have given it maybe an 8 to a 9 out of 10. But since it grew on me so much after widening my music taste because of this album, I realized how much this album means to me and how much it needs to be a 10 out of 10. That's why I'm not cracking any jokes in this video. I'm taking this thing 100% serious, because this album has changed my entire life. And if you have not listened to it, you should 100% go and listen to it like this instant. You can click off this video if you want to. You can dislike it as long as you go and listen to this entire album all the way through. I do not care what you do. It's such a beautiful project. The 9th track, Delta, is another instrumental track, and I can't explain how good this one is. The music video for it, if you haven't seen it yet, it got taken off of YouTube recently. I don't know why, it's for like an unknown reason, but you can search it up and watch it on, I think, Vimeo. Actually, it might be up on YouTube again. I can't remember, but all the music videos for all the songs off of this album are just absolutely amazing. The music video for Blue Train Lines is, I would say, like, artsy. It's experimental. The music video for Marilyn is also kind of the same thing. It's artsy and experimental. The music video for You Look Certain I'm Not So Sure is just people's butts, but I mean, there's also a point in that video when you start to realize this is also just kind of artsy, and that's what I love about it. It's when you get to the Delta music video and the We Go Home Together music videos when you start to realize how fucking great this album is, and how this album is just, like, so well made and so molded together perfectly into this just beautiful mix of sounds and art, and just everything about it is so good. But Delta is an instrumental track that has always been my favorite track. It has always been my favorite track, like, ever. And if you've heard the Warp Sessions, which I would totally recommend, there's a Warp Sessions that Mount Kimbie had made, and I have that on vinyl as well. And every single, they do live performances of Made to Stray off of Cold Spring Faultless Youth. They did performances off of this album, of course. I'm pretty sure they did Marilyn, Delta, and You Look Certain I'm Not So Sure. And I will admit that those live versions are almost the same tier, if not better, than the original tracks off of this project. Delta is just this one track that has so many airy synths, and there's this one point in the song where in the music video there's a point when it just shows these two cops kind of just driving in their car and just kind of bobbing their heads to a point in the song, and that point in the song I can't really describe what it makes me feel like. There's no way to describe it except for it makes me feel fucking amazing. Every time I hear that point in the song, again, this album, I don't think any album has been able to send this many goosebumps down my spine, or just down my entire body. There's so many points in this album that has just sent goosebumps straight down my body. There's maybe at least more than 6 songs off of this project that have done that throughout the entire track. There's also this kind of bouncing synth that is also in this entire song, in this like the entire song. I'm sorry about that. The 10th track, Tamed, or as I would usually call it, just Tamed, has vocal performances from the band members themselves. There's another similar situation to this on Cold Spring Faultless Youth with the track Blood and Form. But Tamed has this really nice melody to it, again with these kind of jazzy drums, and the vocals are just beautiful. They're catchy and they get in your head. And then there's also some female vocals on here that also just like grab you by your collar and just kind of sing right into your face, just like right up in front. And then the final track, track 11, How We Got By, another track featuring James Blake. This track is kind of similar to Poison. This is like what Poison was leading up to. It's like they got the tracks in the wrong order. They meant to put like How We Got By after Poison, We Go Home Together at the end, but it's still just lines up perfectly in the album no matter what order you put these two tracks in. There's piano in this track as well as James Blake's vocals and these kind of jazzier drums, and a lot of the tracks on here are like a jazz, rock, electronic fusion, which is just one of the most entertaining and exciting genre mixes I've ever heard in any album ever, and that's why this album is so fucking good to me. The vocal delivery on this track and just the way that James Blake sings on this track is so just like gut-wrenching and beautiful, as well as every other vocal performance on this album. It's all just completely gut-wrenching, and it all just grabs you by the collar, and it's so beautiful. Every single vocal performance on this track is just amazing. This whole album is one of the greatest albums I have ever came across in my entire life, and I am so glad that I found out about it. when I did. And it is just one of the most beautiful projects, one of the most beautiful pieces of art that's ever been made. And that's why I am justifying the 10 that I have given this album. I cannot praise this album enough. There is not a single point in this album where songs kind of die down unless it's the end. And I don't care because it's the end of the track. And every time I listen to this entire album, once it ends, I'm mad there's not more. I'm angry that there's no more music left for me to listen to. I wish this album went on for like a decade. All in all, if I had not found out about this album, my whole perception on music would not be what it is today. Since there's zero script, I'm just going off on a tangent here. This video is already 24 minutes of recording. But yeah, I'm gonna end it off there. I know I'm probably gonna have a lot of friends who are gonna make fun of me for being like totally 100% serious in this video. I'm probably gonna like joke or troll. I don't like, this is like one of the most important albums in my entire life. Like I said in my last video, I love upbeat and fast songs, and dark songs too, the songs that have more of a minor tone to them. And this album doesn't get too fast, but just the way everything is pulled off on this album, it's all just so beautiful, and everything about this is amazing. But that's it for my video. I'm gonna sign off now. I've been recording for about 30 minutes, and I don't want this video to drag out for too long. But please, if you haven't heard this album, go listen to it, because it's one of the best projects I've ever heard in my entire life. But yeah, that's it for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed.